Meghan, welcome to the Calm Mom podcast. So excited and grateful to have you with us today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
So, we're going to talk money today, and I have been stalking your stuff, and I love it because it's such a bigger picture, right? I think there's so much more to our relationship with money than probably most of us even realize.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to get into that with you today. So before we jump in, would you just take a moment and kind of let everyone know who you are and a little bit about your story and the work that you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Meghan Dwyer. I am a mom to two young boys. We were just chatting. They are now 8 and 6. I'm also a certified financial planner. That has been my career path for the last 18 or so years. And I recently actually also became a certified money coach because I'm just really interested in the interplay between psychology and money. And I actually, because of that, about 3.5 years ago, I started a podcast myself called Money Isn't Scary. And it really, it stemmed from my own personal journey. So I started that during the pandemic when it was a time that I was struggling personally. And I was my husband had lost his job, and I was working from home with two very young kids and breadwinner and all of that stuff. And I was realized that I was online shopping when for things like silly things like shoes or whatever, things that I didn't really need because I didn't really have anywhere to go. And I recognized that there was more to it than just that. Like when I actually would get these things, the tags would still stay on them, or I'd leave it in the box or something like that because I wasn't using it. But I also was recognizing that that's a symptom, right? There's something underneath this constant need to have things. And I realized there was a void that was being that I was trying to fill with shopping or other things. Now, shopping is just one thing, right? There's so many other coping strategies or coping mechanisms for difficult times or difficult phases in our life that we all use. But this is one that I think, especially for women, is very socially acceptable. So I really wanted to explore a little bit more about that within myself. So from there, the podcast was born. And I just really have such a passion for helping women to create a healthy relationship with money so that they can stop fearing the unknown and begin to really live a life that they want to live.
Wow, I love that. So tell me a little bit. You've been a financial planner for 15 years. Is that something that you always like? It's not a career where I could imagine an 8-year-old's like, I'm going to be a financial planner.
Yeah.
Like, how did you kind of get there where you're like, this is something I feel called to, or this is something I'm passionate about?
To be honest, it was curiosity, and I knew nothing. So I
Okay.
realized that I didn't know anything about money. I was not taught anything about money. For me, when I was growing up, money was something that we just kind of didn't talk about. It was something that in my mind just caused stress. It was like that one day a month that dad did the bills. It was like, stay away, right? Like just let
Yeah.
him have his day, and like the money's stressful, right?
Yeah.
So I realized when I went to college. I was a business major. I was actually a marketing major in college. And I graduated college and I was like, wow, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. And I really don't know anything about money. So it was kind of sheer curiosity.
Mm.
Like I was the girl that literally got her first credit card at a concert so I could get a free t-shirt. Like that
I
was
was
like, I think
picturing.
there's so many people out there like that. And we're not taught, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I also didn't have, role models. My dad was a firefighter and my mom was a nurse. So I had this kind of desire to help people, but I didn't really know in what way that I wanted to do that. So I really just did it out of pure interest in learning myself. And so I got a job in a financial services company, and I realized, wow, once I got there, I'm like, I really don't know. I didn't know what a stock or a bond was. I didn't know
Yeah.
anything. So that's when I was like, wait a minute, I want to learn a little bit more. So I started to take classes, personal finance courses towards the certified financial planner designation.
Wow, that's so awesome. I can relate to so many parts of your story. And
Yeah.
as you were showing that, I was just thinking about so I had I've had a law firm for the last 15 years, I
Yeah.
guess. And I've always had a partner. And then 2.5 years ago, my partner and I split and I opened my own firm. And when I had a partner, she kind of handled a lot of the financial stuff. We had an accountant, we had a bookkeeper. And then when I was on my own, I'm like, okay, I have to take some responsibility and accountability. And like, I want to learn more about this stuff because it's always been really uncomfortable for me.
Yeah.
And I remember I reached out to my accountant and I asked her for a recommendation for a financial planner for my personal finances. And we set up a Zoom and I sat down in this Zoom and I just had this guy came on. He was so nice, but he was like in a suit and tie in
Hmm.
his probably 70s or something.
Yes.
And immediately, like, all of this junk I had been carrying for so long just came up. And Megan, I tell you, I thought I was going to have a panic attack. Like, I was sitting in my office where I do all this work and like my heart started racing. My palms got like super clammy and sweaty. I couldn't speak. He was asking me super basic questions. It was like I had blacked out. And I was like, holy moly, like I know I have work to do with money and my relationship with money, but that was such like a spotlight of like there's so much to address here that probably goes back
Oh, yeah.
30 something years.
Yes. And there's so much, it sounds like from that experience, there probably was some shame that
Oh, for
was
sure.
shame of not, of like probably not knowing what
Yep.
you're, and shame of also kind of having somebody in my mind sort of intimidating, which is that's the way you described that person that was online with you, that older, probably white man in a
Yep.
suit, like that is what you think of. And that is what I think our culture has thought of what money is or what money
Yeah.
represents, right? Or people who know about money, what that represents. And that's kind of sad. But I think there's also a lot of shame there that not just you, but
Yeah.
culturally as well, that women, if we don't know this, then we're therefore not worthy of knowing it or worthy or deserving of having it. So it brings up a lot of stuff, and that's actually why I decided to do this one-on-one coaching work with
Yeah.
people, because so much of that, like I'm just making assumptions right now, but so much of that is subconscious or even unconscious, right?
Yep.
And it all goes back to the patterns that were established back in childhood. So this work helps you to be able to like kind of suss that out, to feel it, to like some of that stuff you probably have shoved down for many, many years. And it
Yeah.
helps to bring it to the surface and understand how our current patterns our current patterns are impacted by our past behaviors.
Yeah. So as I love this and I want to hear more about the money coaching because I feel
Yeah.
like for myself and for a lot of women listening, probably that feels a lot more helpful to me as like a starting point than what I tried to do 2 years ago, where I just like shut down. And
Yeah.
I'll be honest, like I ended up ghosting the guy because I was just like, I'm not ready for this right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I want to hear a little bit about maybe some of like the other ways that this tends to show up in the women that you work with, like maybe some patterns or some trends or some things that are like that women don't really notice, but you kind of help point out to them. And then they have these aha moments of like, oh, that's why I do this, or
Yeah.
that's why I tend to do this. Or that's why I have a hard time saving, or why when I talk, my husband brings up it's time to budget, like everything, my body just wants to run and hide or
Yes.
whatever it is.
Yeah. So here's the thing, like, as women, we are socialized from a very young age to play it safe, to hold ourselves back, and to do, in my mind, to kind of do everything for everyone else and put ourselves at the bottom of the list.
Yeah.
Boys, I tend to think, and I'm raising boys right now, so I'm trying to completely shift the mold here, but boys are taught different. Boys are taught to kind of take risks, to be selfish, right?
Mhm.
And it's just different messages that we get, and I think we internalize those.
Yeah.
Um, as a result, right, we become women, we become moms that I think are more prone to martyrdom, right, or to again keeping ourselves on the bottom of the list, putting everybody else's priorities first. So we're kind
Yeah.
of like almost feel stuck, right? So I think there's a lot of different ways this can sort of manifest
Hmm.
in our lives, right? Things like um, not having knowledge, letting somebody else um, handle our money for us, right?
Yeah.
Like by default, letting our spouse be involved in or do more of the finances, and just kind of being like, I can't tell you the number of times that I even just no other moms and friends in town and stuff that'll say, oh, I know nothing about money, my husband handles that. And I'm like, ooh,
Yeah.
anything could happen in my mind. Like,
Yeah.
I see it from the financial planner perspective, like anything could happen, and you kind of do need to step in. But I also think when we do that, that's kind of giving away our power.
Yeah.
um, I also think just generally kind of an extension of that, not having the knowledge, right? So I'm not saying we all have to be a financial planner or have some like master's degree in finance, but we do need to have a basic understanding of our own personal financial situation, which is like, our net worth, so assets minus liabilities, in an understanding of our cash flow, like income and
Yeah.
expenses. This alone is incredibly empowering for people. Um, so the more that we avoid doing this, getting involved and having the knowledge of it, I think the harder it gets for us, and the
Hmm.
more intimidated that we then become. So I think this is where I encourage women to kind of like lean into what makes us uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And spending is another piece to this too, right? Like I was just saying, like, I always have been one of those people that use spending as a coping strategy because it is a socially acceptable one. I compare that to, like, if you to other coping strategies. So if you said to your family, like, okay, I'm going to Target, or I'm going to the mall or something like that, that's normal. But if you just
Yeah.
said, hey, I'm going to a bar, I'm going to go have 3 glasses of wine and come back, like, people are going to look at you kind of funny, right? So I feel like we kind of just go with what feels right to us, or what feels
Hmm.
like more socially acceptable. But we also have to recognize when we're buying things, um, as a response to some emotion that maybe we're feeling. Maybe that's a
Hmm.
band-aid, or it's putting, maybe that's actually just, it's a symptom, versus addressing the symptom versus addressing what's underneath it.
Yeah.
So that's something that I think is really important to look at as well.
Yeah.
Earning is a big piece, right? I think women in general, again, we're conditioned to not be as aggressive potentially as women, or to kind of mess the status quo, right?
Hmm.
So we often tend to, I think, undervalue our work, and
Yeah.
this is a generalization, but it's certainly something that I do all the time,
Yeah.
right? I think we struggle with what we're worth, and therefore, especially as entrepreneurs, or even when if we're just have a job, when we're in a meeting or review meeting with our boss, we struggle to sort of advocate for ourselves
Hmm.
because we struggle with our own worth. So these are just a couple examples. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, that's super helpful. And that's what I was kind of thinking of when you're saying all this. I'm like, I can see how so much of this would be tied to like our worthiness, and
Yeah.
then our ability, or maybe even our comfort level with receiving, right?
Oh,
Because like
yeah.
those are so
Yes.
tied. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I talk about a lot on the podcast, actually. If we're not used to, like I just said, this is me to a T, right? I watched my mom give and give and give and give and give and do everything for other people. And
Yep.
she didn't have her own hobbies. She didn't even have her own real, like, she had like a couple friends, but she didn't like go out with them or have that time for herself. She didn't have her own time. And it backfires, because if you're so used to just giving of yourself to other people, you
Yep.
feel completely depleted, and you also don't feel worthy enough of actually receiving that. Like, think about how often we hold ourselves back, or if somebody even tries to give us receiving a compliment, like, that's an example. Like, we can't
Yeah.
just say thank you and move on. I use this example all the time. Somebody will be like, oh, I like your shoes. And we're always diminishing it by being like, oh, yeah, these, I just got them on sale, or I just got, you know what I mean? Like, or these are old, or something like that. We always like
Yeah.
just brush it off or dismiss. Why can't we just own it and just
Yep.
say thank you, and actually acknowledge that somebody is paying us a compliment?
That's right.
And if we can't receive a compliment, we certainly can't receive more money, more abundance, whatever it is in our lives either.
Yeah.
So that's a component to it. We have to be able to allow ourselves space to take all that in.
Yeah, that's so good. And I think with receiving, so much of it is just cultural, right? And what we've seen growing up and our
Yeah.
discomfort in receiving. But how about also when we talk about like on the energetic side? Like so many of us, especially like high achievers listening, that have been in masculine energy and it's not comfortable to receive, and they've just been like push and do and get stuff done. Like receiving is really is really part of like the feminine energetic. So it's like
Yes.
there's so much I can see that would be tied up in that too that we're probably not aware of.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're so spot on. And that was me for so long. Like, I think, again, I think we're about the same age. And, I think we were taught growing up that girls can do anything boys can do.
Yeah.
And we can have it all, right?
Yep.
Like we're not like my mom worked, she worked part-time. So that was modeled for me.
Yeah.
But there's these messages now that we take on that are, and I really think it's sort of a myth, right? That women can have it all
Yeah.
because we can. I'm not saying we can't, but we can, but not all at
Yeah. What
once,
does
right?
that even mean? Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
And like, what does that mean? Like
Yeah.
managing a home and a work-life balance, like there is no balance, right? So I think though that this message has created like this notion of like the superwoman, and all that
Mhm.
has done is led to burnout.
Yep.
And I feel like this is something that if you are, I am that like high achieving, like kind of type A, just driven kind of a person. And if we're going all the time, then we don't ever have the time to allow ourselves to slow down. So this is a message that I talk about all the time on my podcast, is like when things start to feel conflicted or tight or stuck for you, just slow it down. As I like to say, like hop off the treadmill and just pause. Just take an intentional pause on what's going on and just reassess, like, where am
Yeah.
I at? What are my priorities? What do I really, what do I want? What are my intentions? The intention is huge in this work.
Mhm.
And let's try to take little tiny baby steps to align with those intentions.
Yeah, that's so good. And what I hear in that too is the whole getting off the treadmill thing. We have to slow down enough to be able to take the time to
Yeah,
have that reflection, right? And look back and think
right.
and all of these different things.
But what I'll add to that too is we have to create that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm learning that the culture around us, the expectations from our culture, from our families, from even with like our jobs, the people within our home units, like there's
Mhm.
always going to be expectations.
Yeah.
No one is going to just like give you that break or that
Mhm.
pause. You have
Yeah.
to create that pause. Easier said than done. Like, I think this is like the lesson that
Yeah.
I am for me, that I'm on the journey that I'm on, is learning this. So
Yeah.
it
The
is
ownership of it, right?
for sure. It's like
Yeah.
ups and downs every day.
Yeah. I hear that. um, so I loved how you were kind of talking a little bit about what you saw in your mom, and then even the like financial dynamic growing up with her being a nurse and your dad being a firefighter.
Yeah.
And I can relate in a lot of ways. My dad like was a farmer when I was really little, and then he was a truck driver, and then he was a janitor at my high school. My mom was a social worker, and then she didn't really work. Um, and I wonder if you could talk a little bit about, I think, these associations that we have. Like if our family was lower income, we would expect these kinds of patterns in adulthood. Or if money wasn't an issue, we would expect these kinds of patterns in adulthood. That might not necessarily be true, right? Just because you didn't come from a family that had lower income doesn't mean that you're going to necessarily have a healthy relationship with money
Right.
or a healthy
Right.
money mindset.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I feel like um, some of the stories that and the beliefs, this is where, again, the money coaching work is so powerful because it pulls out what those underlying beliefs are. I
Yeah.
think sometimes we walk through our day to day life without even realizing what those beliefs are that are driving the bus. Like,
Mhm.
you won't know it oftentimes until you get triggered, until
Yes.
something happens and you're like, ooh, that doesn't feel good, right? And oftentimes what that does is we get really like angry, or we have a reaction to it, and then we kind of like find our own little coping mechanism or way to kind of numb out or shove it down or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But the important thing to do is start to explore that more. Like, let's actually say, like, what is that belief? What is that? That's like, let's say it's use an example like this is a common one, not one that I necessarily had, but it's a common one that, like, people who have money are inherently bad. Okay. So
Mhm.
like, then all of a sudden, you learned this growing up, or you
Yeah.
you may not have even actually learned it outwardly. Like maybe nobody actually said that to you, but that's a message that you absorbed through like listening to other people's conversations, through behaviors, all the things that were modeled to you,
Yep.
right? So then you grow up and you kind of go out on your own, and maybe you're in college. And for like, I know that I went to all kinds of student loans, but I went to a school that was, pretty expensive, and there was some kids there that certainly, like, you could tell that. I think that was the first time for me that I realized like who was more of like the blue collar and who was more of the white collar families.
Right.
And so that's when these kind of things come up, is when you start to recognize, and that doesn't feel good, or maybe you feel bad about yourself because
Yeah.
of that. But what's important here is to understand what is that underlying belief. Not only question that belief, but question whether that belief is even yours or not. Because
Hmm.
some of them are beliefs that you have created through your life and through your experiences that you then take on with you, right? Like things that you kind of like have observed or learned on your own. But then there's also those, I just said, those beliefs that you absorb
Yeah.
from growing up and the modeling that was done for you.
Yeah.
So it's really, really interesting to have that knowledge first of what those beliefs are, and then recognize how those beliefs are impacting our day-to-day patterns now. And if it's something that's really not working for you, then let's dig into it and let's work on where do we want to be instead, and how do we kind of get into it. I feel like I went on a little bit of a tangent there, but I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, that's helpful. It's awareness around the roots, right, of a lot of where this kind of
Yeah.
started, and getting curious about it and exploring it.
Yeah.
Um, for women who are really resonating with a lot of this, I think the mindset and even the questions you proposed for us are awesome places to start. On a more like action oriented or practical level, for people who are interested in taking a look at this and really starting to like repair and work on their relationship with money, what are some good ways to start? Like, what are those really little baby steps that, like, okay, if you don't have this in place, this is a good place to start, or start kind of like titrating that thing where
Yeah.
you don't have what I had and just have a full blown panic attack.
Yeah, yeah. So I think, I mean, in your experience, what I would have suggested you do before you go into that meeting is have done a little bit of the work. And I mentioned this before,
Yeah.
meaning like a little bit of the research. Like, what do I own? Like, let's
Yeah.
just start with some basic knowledge. Like, put together, like you could do it in a fancy, like they have all kinds of tools and online softwares and stuff for this now. You could do it in one of those. You could do it in an Excel spreadsheet. You could do it on the back of a napkin. Like, it doesn't really matter. But if you just like draw out as like a literal, take a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle, go assets on one side, liabilities on the other. Assets are anything that you own. So your cash accounts, your bank accounts,
Hmm.
any kind of investments. So, and I would also break this out into kind of different categories. So, what are retirement accounts? So, meaning your 401k or a 403b or an IRA, or even a pension if you have one of those. That those would be considered retirement assets. And then, what are the other investments that you have? Do you own like a brokerage account, or do you own stock in something? Do you own your house? That's a real estate.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily a liquid asset, but that's an asset nonetheless. So name all of these assets, just list them out. And then of course the homework in this, and this is what I think the person that you were meeting with was trying to get, was like, well, what are the balances of all of these things? So create online logins, try to go in and see, and just
Hmm.
all of this alone is just very empowering. Um, Same with the liabilities. You want to know, if you have a mortgage, you want to know not only what's outstanding on your mortgage,
Yeah.
but you want to know what your mortgage rate is. You want to know what you're paying monthly, like what's your principal and interest. Are you also on your payment, escrowing, taxes and insurance, things like that? What are your credit card balances? Do you have an auto loan? Do you have student loans? Things like that. You want to just make sure that you at least have knowledge around all of that.
Yeah.
And then what I'll also add, so there's a couple other things I want to just make note of here. I said cash flow before as well. Cash flow is huge. Having the knowledge of, not only, a lot of times you say, okay, well, I make $80,000. That's your gross salary. That's not what you take in. So you want to be
Right.
able to like look at a paycheck and say, what is my actual, like out of pocket or in pocket, like what am I getting out of my paycheck after
Mhm.
tax withholding, after 401k withholding, or any pre-tax deductions that go through your pay stub or post-tax deductions. So what am I actually taking in net on a monthly basis? And this is the part that scares people. And people don't want to look at this, but the expenses. People don't want to look at it because I talked about shame earlier. There's so much
Yeah.
shame in what we spend our money on.
Mm.
And I understand that, and because I feel it sometimes myself. But this is where, again, we have to, if we want to make any kind of progress in this area, we have to face that which scares us, and the
Yeah.
only way is through, in my mind. So
Mhm.
there's softwares, there's all kinds of tools again that you can go in and aggregate to make this process a little bit easier, and like kind of help you budget it by category. You don't
Mhm.
necessarily have to go through line by line by line. There's with your credit card statements and your bank account statements, but it's really important to have a rough idea of what you're spending on a monthly basis, because that alone is power. And you'll be able to tell, right? Like if you know what's coming in monthly net and you know what's going out monthly, then you can start to like feel, okay, am I in a surplus? Am I starting to save, or am I continuing to pull from savings, or am I kind of in a deficit position every month? Like those are
Yeah.
things that I think are important to do. Um, the other thing too that I just want to add here as far as financial planning is just be aware, right? Like sometimes financial planners are looking to kind of make money off of your money. So you just want to be knowledgeable around who you're working with, what their fee structure is. And I can go,
Mm.
this is a whole other like conversation around how that all works, but just you want to make sure that it's the right fit for you, and you want to make sure that you ask good questions if you are going to be working with a financial planner. And you also want it to be somebody who you feel comfortable with, that you feel like it's a safe space to be able to ask questions. It
Yeah.
didn't feel like in your circumstance it was. You didn't feel safe because you probably felt like, oh my gosh, this guy's judging me because I don't know as much as I should know, right?
Right. Yeah, for sure. And you're so right. If I had gone in with all of that just in front of me, I would have been able to just, spit back what he was asking, and it probably
Yeah.
would have been a very different
Yeah.
experience because I would have been empowered by just sitting down and knowing
Yeah.
where I was at, right? My
Yeah.
starting point.
Yeah.
I have a suspicion that empowerment that would come through something like that in our finances is going to bleed into so many other areas of our life where we will then feel more
Oh,
empowered. Yeah.
absolutely.
Talk to me about that.
I was just going to say, though, I truly believe that the way we do one thing is the way that we do everything, right?
Yep.
So if we're struggling with something in one particular area, whether it's money, like of course those behaviors tend to bleed into things like our parenting or our
Right.
relationships or whatever, marriage or something like that, right? Or our work.
Mhm.
So I feel like it works the opposite way too. Um, once we, so one thing I will say is that I personally think that the numbers are, when you go, if you go to a financial planner or a financial advisor, whoever you're working with, to go through the numbers without having sort of worked on this underlying like relationship with money,
Yeah.
I don't know if you're going to get as much out of it. Like I
Yeah.
personally believe that there is a fundamental piece that's missing, because if I see all the time clients who come to me that might have problems or struggle with spending, or they need help with the numbers, that's fine, and I can run the numbers and I can tell them my recommendations and what to do,
Yeah.
but it's not
Super.
going to be effective
Yeah.
unless they actually do the other piece, like
Yeah.
until they actually know like what is driving this money, what is it, like is there
Yeah.
something deeper that hasn't really been processed yet or addressed, that is what's causing me to sort of create this like um greater you can totally edit this out because I'm blanking on my words right now, but um, to that's making me create this what's the
Yeah, this
word,
pattern, right? It's just
yeah,
like
this
so it
pattern,
runs
or
deep.
right, or this just dissociation in a way.
Mhm.
So it's really, the important thing here is to just really focus, to understand and know that there is a relationship with money component that I think is essential in order to be able to really understand and get value out of the work that you see with a financial planner or a financial advisor.
Yeah, that's so good. And I think, that's so true with anything, right? You go to like a relationship coach or therapist. And it's the same thing. Like they can give you all the advice and give you the scripts and all the stuff. But it's like, man, if you're not doing the deeper work, right?
Yeah.
That's like where those triggers came from, and doing that deep
Yeah.
healing. It's really hard to get past the surface of the trigger, whether it's money
Totally.
or anything else. Oh, I
Totally.
love
Yeah.
that
And
you're,
that in and of itself is so empowering. And
yeah,
I think we also have this idea or notion that like we're alone in
yeah,
this and
yeah.
that, we're the only ones that are
Everyone
struggling with
else
this
is
right now.
really good at this except for
Yeah.
me.
Or everyone else, no one else has the same issues with money that I
Yeah,
do. So
right.
this is something that I really like. This is sort of my number one message when I talk about in every episode of the podcast. Um, Self-compassion. I actually had, I don't know if you know her, Dr. Kristen Neff. She's like the pioneer in
Yep.
self-compassion research. I had her on the podcast. So if you listen to any episode, let it be that one. She's amazing. And she talks about the three components of self-compassion, which is mindfulness, kindness, and common humanity. And the common
Yeah,
humanity piece like blew my mind because before I had that conversation with her, I was like, wait a minute, I'm not alone in my struggles. Like I am not the
mm,
only one. It totally opened my mind to understanding that, wow, other people, even though I don't believe that or I don't see it from the
yeah,
outside, other people actually are struggling. And it may not be the exact same thing the exact same thing that you're dealing with, but other people are
yeah,
too. And again, it's like recognizing that we live in a culture where it's not
mm,
okay to like wear your pain on your sleeve. We have
right.
to we're taught to put up this wall and to
Yeah,
make ourselves look and present as people who are perfect,
yeah.
right?
Have it all
Especially for
together.
women.
Yeah.
Have it all together. Yeah. Yeah. But
Oh,
when you actually like if you get vulnerable enough and share, you'll realize I'm a big Brene Brown fan as well, but you realize that when you let it out, this is her whole thing on vulnerability and shame, right? When you bring it out to the surface and you share it, you're not alone,
that's
and
right.
it can't thrive. And
That's
and
right.
I think that is one of the biggest components to this.
Yeah, that's beautiful. What a good way to wind this down.
Yeah,
And a good point to leave on. So for the people who are listening, like the idea of working with a money coach appeals to me so much. And I know I'm also not alone in that.
yeah.
Let them know where they can find you, maybe resources that you're offering, even just like pop in to ask questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can listen to the podcast. It's called Money Isn't Scary. So you can get that anywhere you get your podcast. And yes, so I'm revamping my website at the moment, but I will have more. It'll this summer it'll be launching, and it'll have specific information on like how to book a call with me if you're interested. But it's moneyisantscary.com, and it has a lot more information on what money coaching looks like. We get down into the level of like archetypes, and the martyr is one of them. So that's one of the things that I was talking about earlier. But
Yeah.
there's some really cool information on my website and resources, and a link where you can find some more time with me. But you can also I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, and LinkedIn too. So you can go check it out.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Well, we'll put all of that in the show notes for you guys. I'll also link that episode with Dr. Kristen Neff on
Yes.
the self-compassion, because I think that'll be a great place for so many people to jump right after they listen to this episode. So thank
That'd be
you so
awesome.
much for being with us. I learned a lot. I can also like feel my nervous system like relaxing and listening
Yeah.
to you in the way that you teach. So thank you for the work that you're doing, particularly with women and empowering them around money, because I think it's beautiful work, it's big work, and it's a really big deal.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Mm.